This is Killian Sandalwood here in a kind of one-on-one question and answer session with Triple X Ryan Fury. Thanks for
Hello,
coming in.
hello.
Thanks for coming in, Ryan.
You're welcome. Thank you, Killian. Thank you for taking the time and wanting to sit down with me.
Well, let's start off this way. Where have you been? I mean, we'll start simple.
Um, so I when I came back to DCWF, um, and I think it was January. Um, I had actually booked a tour in Mexico over the summer. So I kind of came in on a case by case basis, and then when I won the SLCW championship, that made things a little bit more interesting. The original plan was that I would, take the SLCW title down to Mexico and kind of put it on tour and on blast in Mexico. But when Ace beat me, I would have gotten my rematch at Smash, but my son was very ill at the time, so I actually was unable to even make it to Smash. I had to go do that or go deal with that and make sure that he was okay. And then as soon as that was over, I didn't get a chance to even try to come back because then I'm in Mexico working the tour. So it's a
Yeah,
long story, but it's a simple one. I was in Mexico.
yeah, really. Okay. Well, you've been wrestling for a decade. You started in Michigan. How did you get started?
I start. It really wasn't atypical to a lot of situations. Most people, it's guy finds wrestling school, guy gets trained, guy gets in the ring, and it wasn't like that for me. I mean, it was and it wasn't. So I ran into a good friend of mine, and he was talking to me about a wrestling school he was at, a place that he was also wrestling at. And I went down there and I talked to the people there, and I went to go get trained. Um, Come to find out that at the end of the day, these guys were basically glorified yarders. I watched the first
Uh,
couple of shows and I thought that they were awful, and I couldn't understand how pros would suck so much. And about three, about 2 years, 2.5 years went by, and I actually ran into Brian Shotwell, who was the man who trained me, and Truth Martini, who trains a lot of guys in Michigan, is also a big name in Ring of Honor. Um, and we talked for quite a bit, and me and Brian had a lot of similar views on life and all these other things. And he'd been wrestling for a long time. He was trained by Doug Chevalier, who was the original Canadian Destroyer, um, who also trained Coach Scott D'Amore, and was why Petey Williams was named the Canadian Destroyer, because uh, he was given that name through Doug, or through D'Amore, as a remembrance to Doug. But that was kind of how I got started. Like I said, it's not quite atypical. It's a little weird way to get there, but
oh,
eventually it came out really good, and I've been doing it ever since.
that's cool. Very cool. Um, Being one of the few wrestlers that came in from RL, how hard was the transition?
It was very different. I wouldn't necessarily say that it was hard, but it definitely wasn't easy. Um, there's a lot of things that are way different. A lot of parts of it that move sets and things like that were awkward, and like just getting the typing down and timing down. A lot of people don't get, especially in this newer version of SL wrestling, is that I came from when we had the ACPWS system, and the gestures were all locked. So you had to buy, if you wanted certain moves, you had to buy each gesture that was already in the HUD, like the animations were already in the HUD, but you had to buy the gestures, move by move, piece by piece. And you couldn't chain them together. You just had to learn how to quick type or learn how to time things, and there was just a lot of access to it. You couldn't create shorter commands. It was, this is how it goes. It was kind of like, you know, the old Robin Williams joke of fake boobs. That was kind of what wrestling in SL in the early days was like.
Yeah, I can understand that because I have some 200 plus gestures in my inventory from the ACWS system.
Right. I think I spent out probably somewhere around 10,000 Linden. I had about every move at one point before the next gen conversation happened, and then eventually, you know, he gave out the ACPWS for free, and I was like, "Can I have my money back?"
Yeah,
I like
really.
Alvin. I truly do. It was one of my moments where I was like, man.
Oh, what do you feel your greatest accomplishment has been in SL wrestling to this point?
Being the second ever world television champion, I think would probably be my greatest accomplishment. That was a huge deal, and I know you weren't really around at DCWF when that was going on. It was a part of a partnership deal between DCWF and OEW, and it was a shared title that went between both companies, which to me was a huge deal, and a lot of people felt the same way, which is why it was never called the World Television, but in a lot of ways, many of us felt it was like that, because it was the first title that was recognized by two separate organizations. And I think holding that would easily be my greatest accomplishment. The match that I had with Brett the first time for the belt was so good that Seldan, who was commentating at the time, who I have a lot of respect for, by the way, hashtag respect the past, he actually said that he wished that they hadn't already put in the votes because he felt that our match was match of the year, and that meant a lot to me. So being able to face Brett a second time and then beat him for the title was probably the greatest thing that I was able to do in SL.
What it looks like being the best. What it looks like to be a cut up with the rest. What it looks like